Can I just make a comment about that last, this issue of local boards? So I've actually read a transcript of the meeting on September 9th that you were at with Vim Vivel, in which he discussed this issue of local boards. And one of the things that was raised was who would be on this board. And that's something that CORE, and I discussed this with the OSA as well, will be trying to address, because the makeup of that board is a great concern to us. The way that President Vivel is putting it forth is one faculty member and one student, and then many people who seem to be involved because of community buy-in, but also because of philanthropic and money raising. And I think that that's something where it comes back to these issues of what are we going to focus on and whose voices are going to be involved in that. And so that's something that we hope to address as well. Because as you said, we're aware that it must be extremely difficult to address these issues. I mean, we feel like we're here. This is sort of, we know what's going on here. But I can't imagine addressing 7 universities and things like that. And so I think that's one of the reasons we want to have panels like this, is to also think about the structure of what will allow us to have the sort of not micromanage, but at the same time to have a level of accountability. Because that's one thing that I think people are worried about if things go too local, that where can people then intervene? Is the state a place to do that or not?
Before we move on to another subject, just a word on local boards. I'm glad Jim raised it. I mean, I think that there are many conversations that would need to happen before any of the institutions have local boards, and it's good to have the chancellor here for this piece of the discussion, because I think the question about who's on a local board or a prospective local board is a really appropriate question, and that will get due consideration. I think the reason President Vivel would recommend that there be philanthropists, and a significant number of them, on a local board goes directly back to the question of advocacy, right? So it takes us full circle in some ways to where this conversation began, because those folks can really dig in and know the institution and be more deeply connected to the inner workings and the needs of the institution and be able to advocate. I admire the work Jim and others have done on the OUS board. It is a tremendous amount of work for them to consider the needs of 7 very distinct institutions. It's a tremendous service. I think that there's the role of a local board really is to help elevate the local institution in a way that allows those members of the board to understand it and spend time in it in a way that they can't if they're looking at 7 institutions of diverse needs. So that's the rationale, I think, that the president would articulate about the membership of that group.
Can I just, I just want to make a quick comment too on the local boards, or I think also being called institutional boards issue. And OSA has been a part of this conversation, and we originally opposed Senate Bill 559, the University of Oregon's proposal on a local board, and are now again reviewing and looking at what the new proposals are going to be from Portland State and the University of Oregon again, and want to talk with everyone at this table and everyone in the audience too about what these local boards will look like. And one of the issues that we are interested in is the request to set tuition and on those local boards, because we think that there are some conversations that really help when you do have a statewide system in conversation about access. Because, and I was just looking at enrollment numbers today, when we talk about like looking at places like Portland State being evening out in terms of enrollment, then I looked at Southern, and Southern's a little bit increased because that's a point of access, and there are places in the state that do need increased access, within regional areas, and that conversation of tuition tends to be most healthy when a lot of folks are involved, particularly the legislature and elected officials in the governor's office. And that's one reason that OSA advocated for an amendment to Senate Bill 242 that did pass. It was a part of the bill that said the legislature will look at aspects of affordability, what affordability means based on all sorts of different things, whether it's the higher education price index or just what the median family income is in Oregon. But we do want to say that we think that education quality and access are inextricably tied to the way that we govern our schools. And so this is going to be a really critical conversation for the next year when we're making decisions about how the schools will be run on local levels or statewide levels, and what the involvement of our elected officials will be, because we do need to have accountability to Oregonians, and that really does seem to be most healthy in other states that we've looked at that have a strong statewide system. So I think it's a good conversation and an important one to have.